Thank you so much, and thank you for holding this hearing. I think it's incredibly important as we move forward. I was very concerned, not planning on heading down this road, but it shocked me to my core to hear the testimony of Ms. Gia Vagnoli that Trump claimed kids went missing.
Mm-hmm.
As Attorney General in the state of Florida and working with law enforcement around our state and litigating constantly against the Biden administration as they broke down the border and put kids in jeopardy and began to legally traffic children. Well, let me rephrase that. Under the auspices of legality, traffic children around the United States. We were afraid that would be a claim. Because sometimes when things get into a partisan world of discussion, people think it's made up. And that's why I was so fascinated with the results of a grand jury investigation that we conducted in Florida, and I was the Attorney General. Mm-hmm. And that is a grand jury, for those that don't know, is not Republicans or Democrats, it's just lay people that give up their time to come and listen to testimony and witnesses and produce a report. And the report was shocking. And this was in the middle of the Biden administration. The statewide grand jury on this particular issue found that the Biden administration, over the course of the administration, but even in a short period of time, over a 10-month period, they lost thousands of children. When they investigated, they found that they were put into situations where they were abused. Children were running away from sponsors, sold for sex, sent to empty lots, a strip club in one instance. One teenage girl was placed with the house of an unknown man. She had no idea who the person was. And summarily, they found that the Biden administration was facilitating the forced trafficking of children. I mean, you can't put it any other way. I'm not saying that. A grand jury found that. And what was shocking, it's the first time I've heard it until today, was to hear from you, Mr. Clem, and that was even before I heard of the allegation that Trump is claiming the Biden administration lost thousands of children, which I can't believe you can sit there and say that with a straight face. But that you, when you got into office, you said, this report cannot be ignored. What happened to it? Did they even get it? And indeed, you found they did get it. And that was a sign for someone to review to determine if it was, in fact, happening. Is that right?
That's correct.
And as a result of your allegations, or your direction, they found that not only was it happening, it continued throughout the administration.
Just for clarification, when the initial report came from Florida, the Becerra-led HHS reviewed it. Some of the political leaders there were briefed on this, but nothing was done. It just sat there. There was no meaningful action that we could determine that happened after that. So when I was briefed on that in late January and early February this year, I said, wait a second, we need to update this and verify this. So we conducted a second review, and we corroborated everything that the initial HHS review corroborated, and then some. So 2 strikes on this one, yeah. In a good way for us on this, because we're finding the mistakes and we're finding ways to solve them.
And I want to commend the hard work that you've been doing. In fact, we've already made some progress in recognizing that this is a child welfare issue and that these children need some sort of a structure. In fact, when we were doing recent legislation here federally, we tied some of that funding to active cooperation with state child welfare agencies, because the states are the ones that deal with child welfare and stability within their states. I know some states and even lawmakers wanted to turn a blind eye to what's going on, and now they just want to focus on the last 8 months and just forget about the fact that all of those administration officials knew what was going on, not only looked into it, verified it, but then buried it. And was that at the same time when you had administration officials coming to testify to lawmakers here and saying nothing to see, everything's fine?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know that report and that study was done in late 2023, so that I couldn't answer in the affirmative or negative on that timeline.
Well, we had already some progress. We've tied funding now to making sure that if funding goes to these states, that they've got to cooperate with child welfare. That's important. I was proud to get that done over the summer. But I've also introduced a Stop Gaps Act, which would require ORR to work with states and local authorities to guarantee that anyone granted custody of an unaccompanied minor is properly vetted. I want to add to making sure we're coordinating with state authorities, but now make sure there's vetting in place as well. Hopefully the state authorities are already doing that. So I would invite, if truly we want to engage in a bipartisan way, I would invite anyone to sign on to this bipartisan legislation to make sure that children are going to properly vetted homes, and that those that are trained to deal with child welfare are given the responsibility and knowledge. In fact, the real challenge for states like Florida that wanted to do this and wanted to ensure that these children were looked after and not sold, we know they ended up many times into forced labor as well, they wouldn't give us any information. We pleaded. We held grand juries. We asked the government to send people to testify. Just send us documents. They stonewalled us. And so the only way the states are going to be able to protect children is if they have the information, not if people are flown in and by the cover of darkness, not if they're snuck into nonprofits and then let to go whoever shows up to pick them up. There has to be accountability. So again, I would ask my colleagues, Stop Gaps Act. I think it'll go a long way to ensuring the safety of children.
Senator Durbin.